And when these things occur over a long period of time, these specific things will create biofilms, which are conglomerations of different kinds of infections. And what's interesting with these chronic infections and biofilms, they have what's called quorum sensing. And quorum sensing is the ability for these stealth infections and biofilms to basically shapeshift. So if the immune system says, oh, let's get rid of this parasite, the biofilm can shapeshift into a virus, can shapeshift into something else to protect itself. And they will eventually be so good at it that the patient remains chronically ill. So there's also an involvement of the role of metals, chemicals, and EMFs in all of these infections that were aforementioned. Now, EMF is actually something we're all dealing with, and that helps mold grow up to 300% faster. And that is a real big issue for some people who are chronically ill. If you are thriving and feeling great, it might not affect you, but those who are chronically ill or suffering or having these serious issues, these roles of metals, chemicals, toxins, and EMF exposure can really wreak havoc on the human condition. Now, these infections will dysregulate your nervous system, which is comprised of 70 trillion cells. And you want to think of these things as like a bad virus in a computer. You get a weird email, you click on the link, and that's the end of it. When we first were dealing with computers, now we all have, better systems. But your immune system, living in this dysregulated nervous system, will really cause an increase in fight or flight. It'll drain your energy, inflame your joints. It will mess with your hormones, hijack your brain, and it will just do horrible things to the balance that we are seeking, the deeper connection to our body that we are missing. So if you've ever been told everything looks fine, but you feel everything is not fine, it's not all in your head. And again, I'm here to give you hope and some answers. So, the science of this is these stealth bugs will shift what's called the Th1 and Th2 balance. And this is how your immune system works. And Th1 is your cell mediated defense. Think viruses, intracellular bugs. Th2 is your antibody factory. It's great for allergies, but not so great when it's overactive. And most chronically ill people, they are living in a Th2 dominated state, overreacting to everything, but not actually clearing the problem. This is what we call sympathetic dominance. And when this is overridden, there is a process in your body called NF kappa B. And NF kappa B just controls this cascade to 300 to thousands of inflammatory response. And the imbalance goes unaddressed, the symptoms pile up, and we look at people with eczema who I've treated so many people with IBS, autoimmune flares, anxiety, brain fog, and joint pain. So these musculoskeletal problems can exist from stealth infections, triggering inflammatory cytokines, which will affect your fascia and your neurology. And fascia is one of the most interesting topics to talk about. If you ever want to really nerd out, Harvard has an amazing symposium on fascia that's somewhere on YouTube. So, to get back to what we're talking about, I've helped thousands of people relieve their joint pain before I've even laid a hand on them, or relieved their pain by working with all these thousands of people I've helped on telehealth, which is absolutely fantastic. So here's the good news. We can reverse this. We use applied kinesiology and frequency medicine to pinpoint the stress and dysfunction. We also use laboratory analysis and functional medicine. And we just don't send patients out for basic labs. We give a whole menu of choices. We can apply this terrain restoration, fixing the internal ecosystem so your body can finally do what it's supposed to do, which is heal. We all have an innate intelligence inside of our body. And this innate intelligence governs the whole entire universe. That's why you can plant a seed and it just grows. It has all of the intelligence in the universe. All of the matter in the universe has 100% intelligence of the universe. So I wanted to get into some basic principles of my clinical success that treat the biochemical individual. Now, that's the first thing. We must treat the biochemical individual. Everybody's looking for the magic protocol, the magic supplement. It just doesn't exist. There is the you protocol. There is only what exists for you. So if you are thinking that there is something special out there, you just need to look within. Now, the easiest way to get into this is to look back in another Marlene's health talk I did about the 10 Commandments of Detox. So, the 10 Commandments of Detox that I wrote a couple years ago are very important to get this process started. And I'm going to help you guys out right now and remind you. So, number one, stop putting the toxins in. Number two, we need clean water. We need movement. We need to work on our emotions. Supplements are helpful, but you need to work for the supplements and let the supplements work for you. Also, the reason why Marlene's exist, let food be thy medicine. Everybody's heard about clean eating. Clean eating is very, very different than what is actually necessary for your biochemistry to perform. And we live in a world, not to get too off topic, where everybody's a biohacker. Everybody wants to hack the system. Well, why don't we find foods and supplements that bio harmonize with our life, with our environment, with our relationship? Also, chemical free living is very important. Testing. There's applied kinesiology testing, frequency testing, bioresonance testing. There's labs and extensive labs and so many other things that people are not doing. And the 10th one is chiropractic adjusting. That is super important because we need to make sure that the nervous system is adequately controlling all 70 trillion cells in the human body. Now, I wanted to talk about what would make the nervous system and body go off its rhythm, go out of balance. And I call it the three T's: thoughts, traumas, toxins. You are what you think about all day. And thoughts will materialize into matter. Trauma, the trauma of being born, the micro trauma of sitting at this desk right now. There's no bad position, but there are positions we're in for too long that we're not reversing. And then basically, what this whole uh, symposium is based off is toxins. And toxins come in from all different ways. And some of the things we can't control. It comes in from the diet. It comes in from, being in other environments, moldy homes, building sickness is in the millions. And we treat all these things with nutraceuticals, supplements, and body work and other frequency-based modality. Now, my favorite supplements, I only use a couple of brands, and the best supplements are the ones that test best for you. Everybody wants to know what's the best candida protocol, parasite protocol. It's the ones that are resonating with your body. Everybody has a different level of toxicity and it needs to be addressed differently. So my favorite companies are Supreme Nutrition. I love this company. They use single-use herbs. They're all organic and wild crafted, and you have a lot of control over exactly how the body is responding to these things. The next company I like is Vervita. Vervita is created by Dr. Versandol in contact reflex analysis, which is tied for first for one of my favorite techniques out there. They have fantastic essential oils that match your body's frequency and help elevate it. And they have some really great products to help methylation because there's three different kinds of methylation. And there's methylation of your brain, which is a supplement called Inspiracell, one of your heart, which is called Regenerzyme Heart, which is my favorite prenatal. There's immune armor, which is methylation for your immune system. And there's circutonic and matrix synergy, which are just, they're all fantastic formulations. And the only other brand I use in my office is something called Nutritional Frontiers, and Nutritional Frontiers is above and beyond. They are fantastic. They are doing amazing things in healthcare and wellness. And it's an absolute beautiful thing to be in alignment with these three companies who are making real changes, who really care about their patients in a world where supplements are not created equal. There's a whole thing that I have against buying products online from Amazon. You should be getting your products from a practitioner or somebody with a license. Nobody really knows the difference between real or fake supplements, and there's studies out there online showing that they bought 20 different supplements on Amazon, and 85% of what they had didn't have what the brand said they had in it, and they also had non-efficacious doses. So the supplement companies are not regulated, so a lot of them are unscrupulous, and there's a lot of relabeling and there's a lot of black market stuff going on. And most of the time, when a patient says I can get it for cheaper, I always have them send me a picture of the bottle, and I would say 0% of the time that they actually got something that was worth their time and effort. And I would say about 4 times a year, I get the phone call or email that somebody's in the hospital because they tried something. So if you're out there, make sure you're getting your supplements from the right place. Now, let's get back to stealth infections and toxins because they wear you down. They reprogram your nervous system and they launch this full blown dysfunction in your body. Most of your food cravings aren't what you actually like or want. They're these bugs, these parasites, this fungus that are craving sugar. And sugar is the beast that feeds the parasite and the yeast. So when the body is constantly fighting these hidden infections, the nervous system, your yin and yang, it stays imbalanced, sick, and these sickness and symptoms, they become the new normal. And that's when people say, I feel fine. And these symptoms are your body's innate intelligence protecting itself. Mucus in your nose is your nasal membranes and your brain protecting these nasal membranes. So let's give a few real world examples so everybody kind of can maybe relate. Hashimoto's thyroiditis, most commonly driven by Epstein-Barr virus, mold, fungus, and not usually the thyroid itself. Symptoms of fatigue, cold hands, cold feet, depression, weight gain, dry skin, and even TPO and other thyroid antibodies within normal range could really indicate this. And a lot of doctors are not sending out for full thyroid problems. And I don't really want to get, us and them kind of thing, but I send out for a lot of labs and I see a lot of labs, and I feel like um, I send out for more rigorous laboratory analysis than most medical doctors. And I'm very concerned why just a local chiropractor is sending out for all these labs, and why these medical doctors are only sending out for a TSH with a patient with 25 years of thyroiditis on medication with no improvement in care. So the next thing is rheumatoid arthritis. I see this so many times, and it's something that can be reversed. It is so many people just live with it. And it's often linked to parasites, gut pathogens, and stealth mycoplasma infection. Obviously, these people are having hot joints, joint pain, joint stiffness, especially in the morning during the day. And then there's hope for all of this. Next, we have something like psoriasis and eczema. This is absolutely almost 100% of the time candida overgrowth, strep toxins, mold, and possibly viral exposure. I'm just giving examples here. Everybody who comes in with psoriasis might have a different trigger or a different toxin that they are reacting to that is imbalancing their body, as well as an emotion. We'll get into emotions later, but emotions play a huge role in all of these unresolved traumas. So psoriasis, you're thinking skin flares, itching, immune reactivity. When something shows up in the skin, it's your biggest organ that is used in detoxifying. So if you're seeing it in the skin, your body's doing its job, and that's absolutely awesome. So next time we have MS. I actually just read on the news that there were these two doctors, medical doctors, who were diagnosed with MS, and it was because they were in a moldy home. So these can be caused from viral infections, heavy metals, and leaky gut. There's a big relationship between the gut brain axis and how the nervous system. And MS is a very, very difficult thing to manage for, I guess, regular doctors. But one of my first patients here living in Washington 6 years ago, we modified her diet, detoxed a bunch of metals, and she got out of her wheelchair. Within about 3 months, she took her first steps, and she hadn't walked in almost 10 years. So, these symptoms of numbness, vision changing, balance issues, muscle wasting, there's always hope. When we live in this world where, a lot of people are, and I want to be kind, there's a lot of people who will talk bad about medical doctors, but they won't seek care. They will not practice the responsibility of following up and trying to fix it. They just see all doctors as bad guys now. And I can assure you that there are a tremendous amount of great practitioners in the holistic space. You just have to find someone who resonates with you, or work with a couple of people and see what sticks. And there's also a couple of really nice medical doctors out there that I know. And there's also some fantastic acupuncturists that I know. So let's continue to a couple more conditions: ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, diverticulitis. I see this all the time. This is often intestinal infections like Klebsiella, parasites. They're having abdominal pain, urgency for the bathroom, food sensitivities that change every other day. Um, Doctors are putting these people on tons and tons of antibiotics, and then they leave the hospital, they come to my office, we start working on it, they get better, and then they follow up with the gastroenterologist, who after 3 weeks send them for a stool sample, and they have this Klebsiella or Heliobacter or some crazy bacteria. And the reason why is because the antibiotic has killed all the good and bad bacteria. And this is what comes back and shows up on the stool sample. And unless the patient is having a fever and having terrible symptoms, it's not a big deal. And then they put the patient on more antibiotics and more antibiotics, and they give them more stool samples. And it's a really terrible burden on the human condition. It's abusive. And it's also abusive to the families and loved ones, and also on everyone. So it's really crazy to see what is going on. Another common thing that I see is lupus, frequently tied to high viral load, environmental toxins, triggering the symptomatic inflammation, causing joint pain, rashes, fatigue, flares after sun exposure. I've definitely seen my fair share of patients who are allergic to the sun and are allergic no longer. Next, we have Graves' disease, which is hyperthyroidism linked to gut liver axis issues, and chronic infections. Symptoms like anxiety, rapid heartbeat, weight loss, heat intolerance. A lot of thyroid patients come my way. So, type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, I usually see a lot, usually triggered by Coxsackie B virus as well as early candida exposure. The three main um, symptoms are polyphagia, hungry all the time, polydipsia, thirsty all the time, and polyuria. Gotta pee all the time. And also, we see unexplained weight loss. So, I just wanted to share some examples I've seen. Again, there are many ways these patients can present. These are just examples. To me, the diagnosis that these people are coming in with are counterproductive almost. And they're just these words that are explaining a grouping of symptoms they're having, but they're not really uncovering or depicting these simple imbalances that we are able to ascertain and address. So if you've been diagnosed this, you don't feel your best, your tests are normal, or maybe they're not normal and you don't really know it. You haven't had somebody to look at them in a functional manner. You might be dealing with heavy stealth infections, heavy emotional burden, heavy toxic load. It's not just all bad luck and genetics. The environment is what loads and pulls the trigger of the gun of genetics. So genetics exist. I'm not going to take that away from anybody, but it's the environment that will uncouple those DNA strands and RNA strands and make that true. So there are also other ways other than modern labs. Most people are not coming in with state-of-the-art labs. They're usually coming in from Quest Diagnosis or LabCorp. There are things like Great Plains Oat Test, which is an organic acid test, which looks from the urine's perspective, the organic acid breakdown of the bacteria, yeast, fungus. It looks at the vitamins that may be present or not present, neurotransmitters. An oat test is almost like a 9 panel test. It's absolutely fantastic, worth its weight in gold when you have somebody who's been struggling for years and years. If you're going into a doctor's office and you've been struggling for years and years, and they're giving you the same tests, you need to question this, regardless if it's an applied kinesiology test or a bioresonance test. If you're doing the same thing over and over, no matter what it is, you need other things. The gold standard for hormone testing is the Dutch test. The Dutch test is absolutely fantastic. I find that there is no accurate way to test estrogen on an actual blood lab. The oat test can't do this. This is only the Dutch test. No lab can do it like the Dutch test. It's the best. It's fantastic. If you are dealing with cortisol, adrenal dysfunction, or hormonal dysregulation, even though that's rarely the root cause, this is a great way to get ahead of things and feel better and be amazing. I have tons of patients with PCOS, people who can't get pregnant, men who are thinking that they are, in need of TRT, and that might not be the case. Other great labs are the gut zoomer. It's just great for looking at pathologies in the gut. Everyone talks about the microbiome, but very few people come to my office with these labs. Everybody wants, they tell me they're eating yogurt or probiotics, but they have no idea what they're missing or what there's too much of. So people shouldn't guess. Go get a test. That's what they're there for. They're extremely beneficial. Another lab that I love is Cyrex Labs. They are absolutely fantastic to look at the gut brain, you know, coordination. This axis is very important in treating autism and other sort of pandas like symptoms and issues. Another great test is an HTMA test, a hair mineral analysis. And, when we are looking at all of these tests and they're all saying the same thing or pointing in the same direction, it is giving us great confidence. So, as a practitioner, I use as many angles as possible instead of just a LabCorp TSH or a LabCorp Candida value. And the LabCorp Candida values are one of the most, you know, difficult and unresponsive lab values. So if it comes up that you have candida on that, it's a very serious value. And you have to understand that modern blood labs show about 50% dysfunction. So, again, most docs are not sending for complete panels. Insurance companies, they're dictating this. And when you let insurance companies and people who aren't doctors dictate your care, you are not getting the best care. You're getting the worst care. You're getting sick care. And that's the problem is people are treating the symptoms and they're not treating the problem. So it's not all in your head, but it's often in your gut, it's in your sinuses, it's in your liver, lymph, and mitochondria. Okay. So another thing is I just mentioned sinuses. It's one of the first places we get sick. When you breathe something in, like a virus, it goes into your nose and then it creates a stuffy nose postnasal drip. You swallow it and then it goes into your gut and it gets your gut sick. So that's why it's important to blow your nose. So nasal rinses, nebulizing, these are the first places of symptoms. And sometimes when things get back up in people, coffee enemas, which is a holistic form. So there are so many things that you can do and practice, and we utilize whatever the patient's needs are based on, and we test all of these things. So I have seen patients reverse years of symptoms once we clear the terrain, find the problem, fix the gut, process the emotions, and balance the nervous system. We didn't suppress the nervous system. We didn't hijack it. We didn't biohack it. We trained it. We trained the nervous system. We focused on what was causing nervous system reactivity. And we found what was just in the way, and we decided to heal it. And we removed it gently. There are no protocols or practices I use that are making people detox and, run to the bathroom and stay sick in bed. So I wanted to talk about some fun success stories on how specific this frequency medicine and applied kinesiology are, because a lot of people don't know about this world. So, I had this person in my office, and I did some bioresonance scans. I did some muscle testing. I didn't have any labs. I just knew that they had been to the hospital multiple times, multiple doses of antibiotics, and I did some chiropractic plus kinesiology biosystems integration, which includes some hand modes and muscle testing, which I'll introduce a little bit later. And I looked at them and I go, there's something coming up with chicken, eggs, and fungus. And the father and son both looked at me like I was absolutely out of my mind. And like I had two heads. And I said, well, what's going on? I think this is the main cause. And the father says, we live on a farm. My son ferments the chicken's food and takes care of the chicken. So at that point, I had ascertained that the reason why I was thinking about chicken and eggs is because of H. pylori, which is usually from poultry. So we were able to figure out exactly, without any labs, without anything very seriously, very quickly, within the first 15 minutes of our visit. And, within 6 weeks, this patient was almost seeing zero symptoms. And the reason why they did not get better in the hospital is because H. pylori is antibiotic resistant. Who would have thought? Who would have thought medical doctors were just giving out antibiotics for fun? So this is a very interesting thing. And another anecdote about how your environment can get you sick is that I have patients who were sending their daughter to a specific daycare and they started losing their hair. And once they started losing their hair, we had done the work to realize with this frequency medicine, as well as something called immunolytics plates, which we took samples of, which if you're concerned about your environment, go find the nice people at Immunolytics. They're $30 on Amazon. And you could take a sample of up to 5 rooms for $30 and see what kind of mold is growing or fungus or bacteria. And we also can swap the cheek to see it's a very cheap thing for you to do at home. But we found out that this little girl who is just the best precious package in the world, just a great bundle of joy, she lost all of her hair, and the doctors wanted to put her on a lifetime of steroids and said, "Hey, well, there's nothing we can do. She's just different." And I just wasn't accepting that. There was nothing different about this young lady. There was only things that were special, beautiful, and amazing. And within a short time, she has a full head of hair. Um, Also, I have patients coming in we find that they have toxic metals. Initially, they thought that they had some sort of nerve lesion and they couldn't feel half of their body. They losing their mind, anxiety, anger outbursts, and you detox these metals and they have full functioning back into a side of their body that they thought was absolutely paralyzed by. So that's just a couple of things. I won't harp on too many stories. We'll move on. So at first glance, some of these techniques like muscle testing, energy scans, hand modes, they might sound woo-woo or whatever you want to call this. But to the people who are coming into my office, I'm not their first choice. They've already tried everything else. They've tried naturopaths, they've tried other chiropractors, physical therapy, they've been to the hospital. At this point, I have a patient who's been to 30 different previous doctors and is getting fantastic results in my clinic. And there's fantastic science, but by how all of these modalities can actually produce real measurable changes in your body quite rapidly. So, when we're talking about applied kinesiology, bioresonance scan, I use something called the AO scan. And we also are using what's called the Avant laser. We're using emotional work. We're using chiropractic care. And by the end of this performance here, you will see how they all can dial in your nervous system, boost your immune function, and even improve how your body will absorb nutrients. So let's dive in. Applied kinesiology. I'm a second generation applied kinesiologist. It is one of the most powerful tools that we are able to use. It is a system where muscle testing assesses the body's neurological responses to stressors like toxins, infections, or nutrient imbalances. I use a technique called the Leibowitz technique to do nutritional response therapy, to test microbes, to test food sensitivities, metals, chemicals, bacteria, mycotoxins, blood coagulations, and hormones. And we also look at applied kinesiology as each muscle is connected to an organ and a meridian. Applied kinesiology was invented by Dr. George Goodhart, who was bored of just adjusting people's necks. How absolutely amazing, but how mundane, because there's so much more to health. And he went to acupuncture school and saw that there was this interconnected relationship between the brain, the nervous system, and 5,000 years of traditional Chinese medicine and their meridian system. So the weak muscle in applied kinesiology can show us a window into dysfunctioning organs. And then we could muscle test these organs for what kind of microbes are in them because each organ has a different microbiota. AK taps into this neuromuscular feedback and pinpoints all of the imbalances to guide our corrections. It's fast, it's non-invasive, and it's the most accurate, and we're able to do it every visit, unlike a blood test. It is so accurate, it will detect up to 5% dysfunction. While a basic lab will usually show abnormal results when the issue is already chronic, while being only 50% sensitive, and you could only do it often due to the cost and the amount of fluids that people have. So next, let's talk about the AO scan. You can use this in person, and I use this at a distance. Um, they're frequency-based labs. They show you your meridians, your chakras. And I actually was on vacation recently, and a patient said, "I need to go to the hospital. I hurt my elbow. Can you send me for an X-ray?" And I said, "It's Sunday. I can't really do anything for you. You think you can hold off. I'll send you for the X-ray. I'll do the paperwork tomorrow morning." He's like, "Man, my elbow's 10 out of 10 pain." I said, "Hold on. Remember we did the frequency scan?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "Well, let me work on you from a distance. Let's just try it." He's like, "Look, I'll try anything. And if you've ever been in 10 out of 10 pain, you'll let me work on you from a distance with a bioresonance scanner." And I think within a half hour, actually, there's a post on my Instagram. Within a half hour or so, this gentleman went from 10 out of 10 pain to 3 out of 10 pain. And all I did was a pain frequency. And at this point, I was in Florida and he was in Washington. So bioresonance is fantastic. It's the science of reading and correcting frequencies in your body. This is what Einstein and Tesla were working on late in their life. So when something is off between stress, inflammation, toxicities, these frequencies will shift. Bioresonance picks up these distorted signals and they compare it to the ideal frequencies. They then broadcast the corrective frequency back into the body to restore balance. It's like tuning an instrument. And that's how it works. It's absolutely fantastic. So another thing that we use more so in the bioresonance world, where bioresonance meets applied kinesiology, is hand modes. It's a form of bioresonance, and it exposes the patient or person at a distance to low-level sounds that are basically being generated about zero point 0.1 hertz to 20,000 hertz. This is absolute ancient technology. The yogis were doing this with the mudras and their own hand modes. These different hand position resonates with the patient's body, acting like an antenna that can tune in all kinds of pathologies and allergies, including parasites, fungus, bacteria, virus, toxic load minerals, mold, you name it, methylation issues, as well as different allergies, whether they're autoimmune, inhaled, EMF. It is absolutely fantastic. And the way it works is the fascia, again, we talked about that earlier, it acts as a piezoelectric field and it communicates through the body to the nervous system, and you are finding in real time the reactivity that's going on in the nervous system. This has been studied and developed greatly by one of my role models and mentors, the late great Dr. Milton Dowdy, who has used NASA's frequency-based technologies to prove this reality, to prove that these hand modes are doing something and creating these frequencies and are extremely beneficial. These hand modes are shifting the electromagnetic field between the doctor, the patients, and the resonance or muscle test can be felt and experienced by the doctor when this pathology is presented, and you could treat with absolute utter confidence. The strong or weak muscle is the body's field deflections. So this is an amazing way, again, to ask the body's human biofield that's carrying these signature frequencies of infection, as each infection has a different energetic signature. So with this technique in contact reflex analysis invented by Dr. Versendahl, you can analyze a patient's frequency and easily ascertain the corrections and specific points that are need to be made. Different frequencies are corresponding to different patterns in the body. And this is what other doctors are not uncovering. Being able to ask the body what system, what organ, what infection needs care first gives the body exactly what it needs to heal. Being able to decipher the priority in which these corrections are being made makes all of the difference. As most professionals, in my opinion, not trying to be mean, they're taking wild guesses. A naturopath, they look at your labs and they go, oh, you got a bad liver and you got a hormone thing, your iron values are kind of low. Let's give you something for your liver. Okay, let's start there. Say they wanted to pick that. Well, if you're starting at the liver, how are you going to pick a supplement? It's just a guess. It's just an emotional guess. I like this company best. There are hundreds, if not thousands upon tens of thousands of different supplements and compounds that you can utilize for the liver. So, in order to test what's best, you need to do some sort of bioresonance, muscle testing, or some deeper work rather than just making a guess after looking at a poor value. How do you know that's the first thing you even want to treat? How do you know you shouldn't fix the iron that's weighing on the liver? Or maybe there's Epstein-Barr that's inflaming the liver, and that person needs something like olive leaf and doesn't need anything for the liver and doesn't need anything for the iron because things will just eventually fix themselves. So human energy fields are non-local, which is why we can treat from afar. Every living thing has a biofield called a morphogenic field. These field projections are projected outward, and this contains so much diagnostic information that nobody's getting their information from, very few. So without touching the patient, you could read this change in the energy field. And if the patient's biofield resonates with the infection, my systems, my muscle testing will detect it. And that's why I use so many different things to make sure that all arrows are pointing toward north. Let's take you home. Let's get you to feel amazing. So it's very cool to have all of these telehealth patients where there's no physical touch required and you're improving joint function mobility, you're improving their personal bests and times in their exercise. So you're just reading these energetic signatures. And in the past few years, there's been such an uptick in energetic distance diagnostics. And this is honestly the future. And it's time everybody become educated and get on board with this. Pairing this with labs, the AO scan, the nutritional response techniques, chiropractic adjustments, we are really just able to hit home runs. We're able to bowl a strike, so to say. So from meridians to lab values and to hand modes, all signs point to immediate results. So when these powerful resources are coming together, once again, it's amazing. And for anybody who wants to doubt distance healing, I want to bring this up. Distance healing uh, dates all the way back to ancient and shamanic traditions, where energy and spirit were believed to heal across space. Religious practices like prayer in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism also emphasize remote healing through focused intention and has been doing so for thousands and thousands of years. So modern research into distance healing intentions and technology like bioresonance and this frequency medicine continue to explore and apply these concepts today. I've been doing this for 12 years and I get many people healthy and help them reverse their chronic illness. So, despite varying scientific supports, which research is very different than what happens in clinic. If research was actually what it says it was, I would give people some fish oil and their inflammation should go away. But it just doesn't work like that. So distance healing remains a powerful practice rooted in the belief of consciousness, and it transcends time and space. The past few years have accelerated this acceptance of remote healing modalities, and people are questioning it. And when people question things, answers come and good things come. So, including all of this remote work, It has been around since ancient times. And I think it's time that some of us who are stuck in old, outdated ways and systems explore something new and find a new level of health, wellness, and vitality. Also, I mentioned the Avant laser. The Avant laser uses red and infrared light to boost your cells' mitochondria, which boosts your body's energy production, also known as ATP, adenine triphosphate. It increases blood flow, reduces inflammation, and accelerates healing. This process is known as photobiomodulation. Fantastic. Low level laser energy therapy has been shown to enhance immune cell dysfunction, speed up tissue repair, and help the body eliminate chronic infections by improving cellular performance. It calms down the immune system when overactive, and it is key in chronic conditions and autoimmune conditions and dysfunction. I have had so many success stories since I started using this in my practice. One of the main things, I see people get all kinds of dental work and they come into my office. There's quite a few testimonies on my Instagram where these people are, the side like a chipmunk, and they have these other infections and these other issues that happen after it. And they come right in. We start the work with the laser, and the next morning they wake up and they're absolutely fantastic. They don't even, I had a patient that forgot anything happened the next morning. So using this low level laser, which is class 3B, is completely safe and completely effective to use on post surgical patients. Also, I have a recent patient who's had GERD and gastro reflux, and they've been dragging their feet on working on the root cause, changing their diet, and it's been difficult. But since we implored some regular laser therapy, their GERD from 25 years went away. It was the missing piece in her care, and I can't begin to tell you how rewarding it is to see these people free themselves from this slavery of pain and dysfunction. Sometimes it takes a little convincing, sometimes it takes a lot of love, sometimes it takes a lot of hope, and sometimes it just takes a lot of hard work, but it has done amazing things. Also, using the laser with women who have had polycystic ovarian system coupled with emotional work, they've left my office and they have been able to have their period almost right after. It's fantastic for neurological deficit. I had a patient who couldn't, feel his feet as well as having numbness and tingling, and he just went on like a 20-mile hike in Hawaii. So absolutely fantastic. Also fantastic for Epstein-Barr. So it's great when you're working on a patient with these pathogens because you are able to treat them right then and there and know that you worked on the parasite that was in their liver or the flukes that were in their gallbladder. So it's very rewarding. It's very useful, and the patients are feeling it immediately and they are leaving absolutely buzzing in absolute bliss. So I don't want to mull over or miss, but chiropractic care is one of the most underappreciated gateways to health. It is used incorrectly so many times. It's not for back pain. It is for the enhancement of your nervous system. Chiropractic, it shouldn't matter about how you feel. Chiropractic is about how you are going to heal. It is bridging the highway to your brain, which is controlling 70 trillion cells. These 70 trillion cells are on a program that are so exact. Every time now that you guys are home, you can take your clothes off, put your pajamas on, a million cells, whoo, pre-programmed, they die. They die right off. 85% of your household dust is you, is human cells. Every 3 days, you get new stomach lining, 11 days, cheek lining. Every 90 days, you get new red blood cells. It's absolutely amazing. So, when there's an imbalance in thoughts, traumas, and toxins, the information highway needs to be balanced. Otherwise, these things are going to start doing whatever they want, just like a bad computer virus. An example, if the vagus nerve is under pressure, everyone loves the vagus nerve. Digestive enzymes won't release properly. The heart circadian rhythm won't be right. You won't get good sleep. Inflammation will increase. The immune system goes all the way down. But after a proper adjustment, patients are reporting absolutely less bloating, more regular bowel movements, deeper sleep, and a sense of calm that they haven't felt in years. I recently had two babies in the office, and one of them couldn't sleep, and I adjusted the baby. And the mom called me the next morning. She goes, "My kid's still asleep. What did you do to it?" And I go, just gave it an adjustment. It must have been really tired. She said, "Well, it's been sleeping for 18 hours." And I go, "Well, it's resting and recovering." And a lot of times when I adjust these babies, um, who have colic or digestive problems, before they even check out in my office, they'll go poop poop in their diaper. And it's absolutely, they go, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." But to me, it's an absolute testimony and blessing to watch how fast these healing processes occurs. So if your body is in this sympathetic fight or flight, these adjustments put them in parasympathetic, which is rest or digest, feed, and breed. And this is imperative for treating chronic infections, fatigue, autoimmunity while going and trying to work with these specific infections. So, again, we're seeing these immediate results in the office. Chiropractic care is absolutely critical for those who are dealing with infection, fatigue, autoimmunity. So, your body can repair, regenerate, absorb nutrients, and most importantly, feel safe. It's about feeling safe and creating safety, hope, and love. And this establishes that safety in the nervous system. So, to get these lasting results, we use chiropractic. We use integrative tools to you know, harden our knowledge, sharpen our sword, and learn about really what's going on with the patient. Using the laboratory analysis, the muscle testing, the AO scans, the Avant laser. Me and my colleagues, we call this frequency medicine. And these modalities in a unified form and system addresses not specifically the systems, but the underlying energetic and structural disruptions that are causing them. We're using real-time feedback, using the muscle testing to get real-time results. The AO scan allows us to go deeper into the energetic fields and balance the human's uh, neurological adaptations and helping people know more about themselves, working on meditation to go into a deeper state of theta being. So these modalities are all applying a new level of frequency and tailoring in specific supplements and herbs to support what the body actually needs. Everything is working better when we are in a clear nervous system, free of thoughts, traumas, and toxins that are interfering. Patients ask, "How do I know?" Or future patients, "How do I know if it's working?" The answer is you're going to feel it. You're going to feel it real soon. If we're doing the right thing and you're working with the practitioner, you should feel better really soon. If you don't, it's either your spouse or your house. Very rarely do I work with a patient between 3 and 6 months and their labs don't get better. And if they don't, they're either getting reinfected by a building they're in or a spouse or possibly a really toxic emotional relationship. So when we are clearing all of this, the brain receives clearer feedback from the gut. The stress load is reduced. The body moves from a survival mode into a level of rebuilding. The immune system works smarter and not harder because that's what we want to do. The stress load reduces and the body moves from survival to a place of rebuilding and peace. So these approaches are extremely empowering. So for people who have been searching for deeper answers, who've tried everything else, this work isn't just refreshing, it's life changing, it's transformational. Once your body remembers how to heal, you're not fixing a problem. You're becoming more resilient for life. Look, I get it. You've been to the doctor and doctor after doctor, and you have had those labs handed to you or a diagnosis. handed to you and you shrug. I'm here to tell you that you're not crazy, you're not lazy, it's not just aging. I'm here to bring you hope. And most people aren't avoiding care, they're avoiding this medical gaslighting and this one size fits all nonsense as they see a lot of people being damaged from recent medications and events. And a lot of the medications, like statins, have also been disproven that they're somewhat not effective in making your life any longer, as every cell membrane in your body is made of cholesterol. So there's a better way. So if you're serious about change and you really want to heal and you're tired of waiting for permission to feel good again, I do telehealth, I do in-person visits, and I work with people all over. I actually just opened up a Monday morning, early Monday morning slot that is filling up quick for telehealth patients. So I just don't look at your labs. I listen, I test, I retest, and I dig deeper and deeper and deeper, and we work harder and harder until we get real results. So if you're ready to get the bugs out, balance your immune system, and feel like yourself again, follow me on Instagram, check out my website, schedule a free discovery call, and find out how I can help you. I have an open door policy. So if you have a friend, family member, or a loved one, have them come by on a free discovery call and just have a conversation. So I wanted to thank Marlene's Market and Deli, Lassen's, and I believe Papayas for making this conversation possible and continuing to give people like me a platform to talk about things that are really important. Until next time, I encourage everybody to stay curious, stay well, stay resilient, and I will stay on and answer any questions anybody may have.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Absolutely fantastic.
If anybody has questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat box.
I have a question. I don't know if anyone else raised their hand or whatever first.
Go
Um,
ahead.
okay, my question is, do you work with mostly breastfed babies?
Absolutely. Great question. I should have brought that up in my talk. I specialize in pediatrics as well as pregnant women and breastfeeding women. Um, this is a group of people that often gets undermined and not looked at, but there are several modalities, tons of herbs, and many things that you can use for this community.
Okay, and like a follow-up to that, if the baby is the one with the candida and the eczema, do you also work on the mom who is breastfeeding, or is it just through the baby that you're working with?
Well, as I said in my talk, if there's a family who's getting sick, you know, it's always good to work with the whole family. In Chinese medicine, there's a saying, I'm going to butcher it, but, for a healthy family, you have to start with a healthy mother. So I love treating whole families, and I actually this year started offering a family appointment where I will treat more than one person experiencing the same kind of issue because, if you might not be showing symptoms, but you might be carrying them. And, if you are going back and forth with the breast milk and, connection, a hug will transfer over 10 million microbes. So I'm sure that there is some level of infection in both. And it's, really great to work with both patients. Sometimes, giving the mother specific herbs will pass them on through the breast milk so the baby can can benefit from these specific herbs if they're not able to take them or there's difficulty doing that. So there's a lot of different things that you can do very successfully. And again, I have helped deliver over 200 babies over the past 15 years. And I work with a lot of mothers and babies, and it's one of the greatest honors that I get to do. And I'm so grateful for all of my patients who trust me and honor my work to do this.
Thank you so much for answering that.
You're very welcome. I hope to talk to you soon.
Definitely.
Okay, anybody else with any other questions? I'd love to answer anything anybody wants.
Hey, Dr. Bland, Karen here. I've got a
Hey, how
family
you
member.
doing?
Hey, doing okay. I've got a family member that got long COVID about a year and a half ago, and they've been in bed ever since. Um, can you say anything about long COVID?
Sure, I would love to. You know, I do see a lot of patients with long COVID. I do get a lot of referrals from other doctors with complicated cases. Um, I might have mentioned it before, but COVID specifically, the one thing that I've noticed is the spike protein is something that people need to work on. Also, the COVID and the COVID vaccines will attack methylation centers, and the three methylation centers are the muscle and circulatory system. So I like circutonic for that. If it tests, it will attack the heart so that we do Regenerzine heart, and it could also attack the brain, and we use Inspiracell for that. Um, Sometimes those things are too, heavy energetic, and we have to start smaller. But looking at what this does, looking at the fibrinolytic activity of the blood as it thickens. The blood thickens and they're exhausted. They're not getting enough oxygen. I also, unpopular belief that I think that the COVID infection and many folks who are dealing with this really severe post-COVID thing really will attack hormones. But it also, to me, it like opens up Pandora's box, and any other infection or co-infection or anything that could have been going on previously will be kind of exposed and need to be dealt with. So the work that I do, I'm easily able to identify the priority of what needs to be worked on first, or what is necessary, because this is a very sensitive patient who is having a really, I understand seeing people having a really hard time of being dizzy and not feeling well. So just being careful with this patient and being loving and meeting them where they're at is a very important part. But if you know somebody suffering, I definitely can help. Does that answer that for you? Do you have any follow-up to that?
No, that's helpful. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So welcome. I really appreciate you and your question today. All right. Anybody else with a nice question? I like a good question. Anybody wondering about something specific? All right, Joe.
If not, I want to thank you for that was a really brilliant talk. I appreciate it, and thank you for the work you're doing with our community. Um, Fantastic. I'm very grateful for what you're doing.
I'm very grateful for you. I'm looking forward. I think we have something going on in a couple of months. It'll be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be 100%. And I look forward to that. Um, yeah, fantastic, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Um, Anything else, Ryan?
No, I guess one more moment of gratitude for Marlene's Market and Deli, and one more moment of gratitude for the health and wellness community, not just here in the Pacific Northwest, but worldwide. We're changing the world, we're changing how things are going, and these small grassroots communities, I don't know if people realize it, but I'm reminded very frequently that these tiny little meetings, make a world of difference. And even if it only reaches one person, that is absolutely everything. Whether it's one person or 1 million people, it's an absolute blessing to be here, to give my all. And if anybody wants to reach out and they have any questions that are private, you can message me on Instagram at Dr. Ryan Bland or email me at drryanbland.com, and I'd be more than happy to address your concerns privately.
Brilliant. Okay, Dr. Bland, I'll wrap it up here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you and God bless.
You too.